But with that, we will pivot to week 2. And we did the locks last week. They went horribly for me. You're still sort of holding your breath, but you could be staring down 0-2 as well. But before we get into the locks, we will get right into start sits powered by Did It, a segment that I think went much better because our advice was much better than the locks last week. So yeah, let's try to keep it rolling. And don't forget, this segment is sponsored by our friends over at Did It. If you are looking for real, authentic, personalized fantasy advice, download the app today. Chat with one of their experts. You will not regret it. These guys know what they're doing in the fantasy space. So with that, Kat, who is your first start of week 2?
I'm going to roll with Anthony Richardson.
Wow, okay.
I loved what I saw from Anthony Richardson, and it was exactly what I expected him to be. I think that he's just such a special athlete and is such a special talent with the ball in his hands that the Colts are going to make it their game plan to get this guy involved, seriously involved, using his legs, using his arm. And I think you saw that on display. In his first ever NFL start against a good Jacksonville team, he had like over 20 fantasy points. So I'm going to roll this guy. I'm probably going to roll him until he proves to me that he shouldn't be rolled out. I think he's that special of a talent. And from a fantasy perspective, we saw what Jalen Hurts did last year. And I don't want to say it was all because of his legs, because it was not. But if he could even just be what Jalen Hurts was with his legs, and I think he's a better athlete than Jalen Hurts, he could be a serious fantasy producer week in and week out. So I'm going to roll with Anthony Richardson as my must start this week.
I think the rookies are going to take over in this segment because for my must start in week 2, I'm going with Zay Flowers. In camp, we heard about how Lamar Jackson was calling him joystick because he's so shifty, and that was on full display in week 1. His target share was amazing. They used him in the run game. He just looked like a very, very special weapon that is going to carry this Ravens offense. And let's be honest, I do think outside of Lamar, this is an offense that is in need of a game breaker, someone with explosive speed and special athletic abilities. And I think Zay Flowers is that guy. Make sure he's in your lineup because he's going to continue to be the favorite target in this offense. He's going to continue to produce. Zay Flowers, my must start for week 2.
I'm a big Zay Flowers guy. Big Zay Flowers guy. So let's move into sits. My must sit for the week, which is going to maybe come as a shock to some people, but I'm going to go with Tyler Algier. The reason why I say this is I don't expect him to do what he did last week, and I know people are going to be tempted because I'm sure 90% of people that had Tyler Algier last year, unless you're playing in a 14-man league, probably had him on the bench, right? Because there are better options. And I genuinely think that despite him finding the end zone 2 times and touching the ball as much as Bijan Robinson did, I don't think that his role is going to be as prolific as it was in the first week. I think you're going to eventually see Bijan Robinson start to take over. Obviously, they're going to still use Tyler Algier, but the opportunity, which is all fantasy really is opportunity and volume, is just going to slowly start to fall back just a little bit. So we're going to be rolling out Tyler Algier next week. I don't think you should be either. I think you should just sort of wait. And if you have an injury, that's when you roll him in. But I would not be counting on this guy next week to be a producer that he was in week 1.
I do think Algier is going to continue to find a role in the offense. He also outtouched Bijan in the red zone, but you are going to see Bijan start to elevate himself. Algier also doesn't have the big play ability that Bijan does. He also doesn't get the volume in the passing game that he does. So at that point, you are pretty much relying on touchdowns. And I think it's going to be tough to expect this, Desmond Ridder-led offense to continue to march this Falcons team into the red zone so that Algier can get as many opportunities as he did last week. But you know what? I think he does still have some value, but a start is kind of bold. But I'm into keeping Algier on your roster or even targeting him. My sit for the week. This is a team that I had high hopes for last week. They did not deliver. The Washington Commanders, and specifically Terry McLaurin. He's going up against the Broncos. Patrick Surtain is going to be a fantasy nightmare this year. He had his way with Davante Adams. Adams is a guy that consistently puts up, 15, 20 fantasy points. That did not happen last week. You go, Terry McLaurin, not as good of a receiver, not as tough of a cover. Couple that with Sam Howell, who I think really, really struggled against an Arizona Cardinals team last week. I'm not buying what I'm seeing with this Commanders offense yet. I would sit Terry McLaurin, and I would kind of be worried about the future that he has because Curtis Samuel had more volume. Jahan Dotson was more of a feature in this offense. And the connection between Howell and Terry, who knows how it's going to sort of play out. So I'd sit Terry McLaurin this week. Those are our stardom, sit-em, powered by Did It. Make sure to go download Did It on the App Store and reach out to them for all the fantasy advice you need. It's personal, it's custom, it's tailored to you, and it will help you succeed in your leagues this year.
Yeah, man, like Puck said, Did It. Those guys are very good at what they do. It's one-on-one personal fantasy advice. I've never seen anything like it. I sure used it to my advantage, and I mean, not to brag or anything, but I didn't actually suffer a fantasy loss this week. So who knows?
Wow, 6-0 in your 6 leagues. That's impressive.
I think I'm in more leagues. I think I'm in 7 leagues. I know I said 6 last week. I had 6 drafts, 7 leagues.
Oh, because one's a dynasty. That's right. All right.